The spaceship descended silently through Earth's atmosphere, its sleek silver surface shimmering faintly in the morning sunlight. It landed gently on a wide field just outside Washington, D.C., where a small crowd of humans had gathered to welcome their visitors. The aliens stepped out one by one, their tall, slender forms and smooth gray skin making them look both strange and elegant. They were students from Zorith, a planet far beyond Earth's solar system, sent here as part of an intergalactic exchange program designed to foster understanding between species. Kale, the leader of the group, took a cautious step forward. His large, dark eyes scanned the surroundings with curiosity. Behind him stood his classmates. Lyra, who tilted her head at everything she saw. Joran, whose quiet demeanor made him seem almost shy. And Vesa, who couldn't stop glancing at the bright blue sky above. None of them had ever been to Earth before, and they were eager to learn about this planet's history and culture. Their guide for the trip was Alex Bennett, a young historian with a friendly smile and a calm voice. He approached the group, extending a hand in greeting. "Welcome to Earth," Alex said warmly. "I'm Alex, and I'll be your guide during your stay here." Kale nodded politely, though he didn't return the handshake. Physical contact wasn't common among his people. Instead, he spoke in a soft, melodic tone. "Thank you, Alex. We are honored to visit your world." Alex led the group toward the city, pointing out landmarks along the way. The Lincoln Memorial stood tall against the horizon, its marble columns gleaming under the sun. As they walked closer, Lyra reached out to touch the statue of Abraham Lincoln, marveling at its size and detail. "This is impressive," she said. "Your leaders must have been very wise." "They tried their best," Alex replied with a chuckle. "But wisdom doesn't always prevent conflict." That word, conflict, caught Cal's attention. "Conflict?" he asked. "What do you mean?" Alex hesitated for a moment, unsure how much to share. He decided to start simple. Earth has gone through many difficult times. Wars, battles, struggles over land and beliefs. Those things shaped our history. The aliens exchanged puzzled looks. War was something they only read about in ancient texts. On Zorith, disagreements were settled through careful discussions and mental exercises, not physical violence. The idea of fighting seemed alien to them, ironic, given their name. Lyra tilted her head again. "Why would anyone choose to fight? Isn't talking easier?" "It's complicated," Alex admitted. "Sometimes emotions get in the way. Fear, anger, pride. They can push people to act without thinking." Joran frowned slightly. "Emotions sound inefficient." Alex laughed softly. "They can be. But they're also what make us human. And sometimes they inspire great acts of bravery and sacrifice." As the day went on, Alex showed the aliens more of the city. They stopped at the National Mall, where monuments told stories of struggle and triumph. At the World War II Memorial, Kale paused to examine the golden stars engraved on the wall. Each star represented 100 lives lost. He counted them silently, his expression growing serious. "How could so many die for a single cause?" he asked quietly. Alex sighed. "It's hard to explain unless you understand the stakes. People believed in protecting their homes, their families, their futures. For some, that meant risking everything." Vesa looked up at Alex, her wide eyes filled with wonder. "You must be very strong to endure such losses." "We try," Alex said simply. "And we learn from it. That's why studying history is important. It helps us avoid repeating mistakes." By the end of the day, the aliens had seen enough to spark countless questions. Kale felt a mix of fascination and confusion. Earth's history was messy, painful, and unpredictable. Yet there was something compelling about it, something raw and real. As they returned to their temporary quarters, Kale turned to his friends. "I think we have much to learn here," he said thoughtfully. "More than I expected." Lyra nodded. "Yes, but I hope we can also teach them something in return." For now, though, their focus was clear. Tomorrow, they would dive deeper into Earth's past, uncovering the layers of conflict that defined humanity. And perhaps, in doing so, they might find a new way to see themselves and their own world. The next morning, Alex met the alien students in a large room filled with holographic projectors and screens. The walls were blank at first, but as Alex pressed a button, images began to appear, scenes of battles, soldiers, and ancient weapons. Kale and his classmates watched intently, their expressions a mix of curiosity and disbelief. Alex had prepared a timeline of Earth's most significant wars, starting with the earliest recorded conflicts. "Let's begin with something from long ago," Alex said, pointing to an image of Greek warriors clashing on a sandy battlefield. "This is the Siege of Troy, a war fought over 3,000 years ago. It started because of a disagreement between two kingdoms." Lyra tilted her head. "They fought over pride." "In part, yes," Alex replied, "but also over honor and loyalty. People back then valued those things deeply." Joran frowned. "It seems inefficient. Why not talk it out?" Alex smiled faintly. "You're right. It does seem that way. But emotions like anger and revenge often clouded judgment. Sometimes, people thought fighting was the only answer." As the presentation continued, Alex showed them more battles. Roman legions marching across Europe, knights in shining armor during the Crusades, and samurai warriors in feudal Japan. Each story brought new questions from the aliens. Vesa was particularly struck by the samurai, whose code of honor emphasized sacrifice and discipline. "They lived for duty," she said softly. "Is that why they'd fought so bravely?" "In many cases, yes," Alex explained. "But bravery doesn't always mean choosing the right path. Many wars caused suffering for innocent people." Kale leaned forward, his dark eyes narrowing. "And yet you keep studying these events. Why? Wouldn't it be better to forget them?" Alex shook his head. "We study them so we can learn. Wars teach us about human nature, our strengths and weaknesses. They remind us of what we stand to lose if we repeat the same mistakes." To illustrate his point, Alex moved on to World War II, focusing on D-Day, the massive invasion of Normandy by Allied forces. A hologram of soldiers storming a beach under heavy fire appeared before the group. The aliens gasped at the sight. Men running through chaos, some falling into the water, others pressing forward despite the danger. "This battle turned the tide of the war," Alex explained. "Thousands of soldiers risked their lives to free countries held by enemy forces." Lyra covered her mouth with one hand. How could anyone survive such horror? "Many didn't," Alex admitted. "But those who did helped change the course of history. Their courage gave hope to millions." Joran crossed his arms, deep in thought. "Your species values sacrifice, doesn't it? Even when it means losing so much." "It's complicated," Alex said. "Sometimes sacrifice comes from love. For family, for friends, or for a cause. Other times, it's forced by circumstances. War brings out both the worst and the best in people." Vesa looked at him, her expression softening. "Do you think humans will ever stop fighting altogether?" "I hope so," Alex replied honestly. "But peace isn't easy to achieve. It takes effort, compromise, and understanding. That's why learning about our past is so important." By the end of the session, the aliens were quiet, processing everything they'd seen. Kale broke the silence first. "Your history is overwhelming. So much pain, but also so much strength." Alex nodded. "That's true. Humanity has made terrible mistakes, but we've also shown incredible resilience. We keep trying, even when things seem impossible." As they left the room, Lyra glanced back at the now blank walls. "I wonder if we could have survived like you," she murmured. "If we faced such trials, would we have endured?" No one answered her question. Instead, they walked together in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. For the first time, the aliens began to see Earth not just as a planet of conflict, but as a place where courage and hope lived alongside fear and loss. And though they still had much to learn, they knew this journey would leave a lasting mark on all of them. The following day, Alex introduced the alien students to a darker chapter of Earth's history, the Cold War. Unlike the battles they had studied before, this conflict was less about armies clashing and more about fear and suspicion between two powerful nations, the United States and the Soviet Union. To help them understand, Alex used holograms to recreate scenes from that tense era: nuclear missiles standing ready, protests filling city streets, and leaders speaking sternly on television. This wasn't a war with soldiers fighting on battlefields, Alex explained. Instead, it was a struggle for power and influence. Both sides wanted to prove they were stronger, but neither wanted to start a direct fight because of something called mutually assured destruction. Lyra raised a hand slightly, her brow furrowed. Mutually assured destruction. What does that mean? It means if one side used nuclear weapons, the other would retaliate, and both would be destroyed, Alex said. So instead of fighting openly, they competed in other ways, like building bigger weapons or sending spies. Joran leaned back, his expression thoughtful. That sounds stressful. Living under the threat of total annihilation must have been hard. It was, Alex agreed. People built bomb shelters in their backyards and practiced emergency drills in schools. They lived with the constant fear that everything could end in an instant. To make it clearer, Alex showed them footage of the Cuban Missile Crisis, when the world came dangerously close to nuclear war. The aliens watched as leaders debated behind closed doors, trying to find a solution without escalating tensions further. Vesa covered her mouth, her wide eyes fixed on the screen. They were so close to disaster, she whispered. How did they stop it? Through careful negotiation and compromise, Alex replied. Both sides realized that peace was better than destruction. It took courage to step back from the edge. Cale crossed his arms, his gaze distant. It's strange. You had the power to destroy yourselves completely, yet you chose not to. That's admirable. Alex nodded. Yes, but it wasn't easy. There were moments when it felt like there was no way out. Humanity had to learn how to control its fears and focus on what mattered most: survival. As the lesson continued, Alex highlighted smaller victories during the Cold War: space races, cultural exchanges, and efforts to limit nuclear weapons. He showed them images of astronauts planting flags on the moon and musicians playing concerts in foreign countries, acts meant to bridge divides between rival nations. Lyra tilted her head. You used creativity to connect with each other, even while competing. Is that why your species values art and exploration so much? In part, Alex said with a smile. Art and discovery remind us of our shared humanity. Even in the darkest times, we look for ways to come together. By the end of the session, the aliens sat quietly, reflecting on what they'd learned. Joran broke the silence first. Your history is full of contradictions, he said. You're capable of great destruction, but also of incredible restraint. How do you balance those sides? Alex shrugged. We don't always succeed, but we try. Every generation learns from the last, hoping to do better. Vesa looked at him, her voice soft. Do you think we'll ever face something like this on Zorith? I hope not. Alex replied honestly. But if you do, maybe you can learn from our mistakes. Peace isn't just the absence of war. It's about finding ways to live together, even when it's hard. As they left the room, Cale glanced at his classmates. For the first time, he saw Earth not as a chaotic planet, but as a place where people struggled, and sometimes succeeded, to rise above their fears. Though their journey was far from over, the aliens began to realize that Earth's story held lessons that could resonate across galaxies. The next day, Alex decided to shift the focus of their lessons. Instead of talking about large-scale wars and global conflicts, he wanted the aliens to understand the personal side of combat, the stories of individual people who faced danger and made sacrifices. He gathered the group in a quiet room with soft lighting, where holographic images of soldiers, medics, and civilians appeared one by one. Today, Alex began, we're going to talk about heroes. Not kings or generals, but ordinary people who did extraordinary things. Cale tilted his head slightly. Heroes. What makes someone a hero? Alex smiled. A hero is someone who puts others before themselves, even when it's scary or difficult. Let me show you an example. He projected the image of a young man in uniform, standing beside a tank in a desert. This is Chris Martinez. He was a soldier during a modern conflict. One day, his group came under attack. Instead of running away, Chris stayed behind to protect his friends. He gave them time to escape, but he didn't make it out himself. Lyra covered her mouth with her hand. He gave his life for others. Yes, Alex said softly. And that's why people remember him. Not because he won a battle, but because he showed courage and love for his team. The aliens were silent for a moment, absorbing the weight of the story. Then Vesa spoke up. But wasn't he afraid? Wouldn't anyone be? Of course he was, Alex replied. Fear is natural. But sometimes people find strength they didn't know they had. That's what makes their actions so special. Next, Alex introduced them to Maria Lopez, a medic who worked tirelessly to save lives during another conflict. A hologram showed her kneeling beside wounded civilians, her face streaked with dirt and sweat. Maria didn't carry a weapon, Alex explained. Her job was to heal, not fight. But she risked her life every day to help those in need. Joran frowned slightly. Why would she do that? Wasn't she scared? She was, Alex admitted. But she believed it was her duty to care for others, no matter the cost. People like Maria remind us that war isn't just about weapons. It's also about compassion. As the session went on, Alex shared more stories. A teacher who shielded her students during an attack, a farmer who hid refugees in his barn, and a pilot who flew dangerous missions to deliver supplies to trapped villages. Each story painted a picture of humanity's resilience and kindness, even in the darkest moments. Vesa leaned forward, her eyes wide. These people, they weren't trained warriors, were they? They were just regular humans. Exactly, Alex said. That's what makes their actions so powerful. Anyone can choose to do good, even when everything seems hopeless. Cale nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. I think I'm starting to understand something. Your history isn't just about battles and weapons. It's about the choices people make, whether to fight, to help, or to hope. That's right, Alex agreed. War shows humanity at its worst, but it also brings out the best in some people. Their bravery inspires others to keep going, even when things seem impossible. By the end of the lesson, the aliens felt a deep sense of respect for the individuals they'd learned about. Lyra turned to Alex, her voice soft but earnest. Do you think we could act like that if we were in their place? I believe anyone can, Alex replied. It's not about being strong or fearless. It's about caring for others and doing what's right, even when it's hard. As they left the room, Cale glanced at his classmates. For the first time, Earth's combat history didn't feel distant or abstract. It felt human. The aliens realized that behind every battle and conflict were real people making choices, big and small, that shaped the world around them. And though they still had much to learn, they knew these stories would stay with them forever. The next morning, Alex took the alien students on a trip to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, a place known as one of the bloodiest battlefields in American history. The group arrived early, just as the sun was rising over the rolling fields. The air was cool and crisp, and the quietness of the area made it feel like a sacred space. Cale and his classmates stepped out of the vehicle, their eyes scanning the open landscape dotted with cannons and monuments. This is where the Battle of Gettysburg took place, Alex explained. It happened over 150 years ago, but people still come here to remember what happened. Lyra walked ahead, her gaze fixed on a weathered cannon resting near a stone wall. She reached out to touch it, her fingers brushing against the cold metal. "So much pain happened here," she whispered. "Can you feel it?" Alex nodded. "Some say this place holds memories of those who fought and died. It's not just a battlefield, it's a reminder of sacrifice." As they moved through the grounds, Alex pointed out markers that told the stories of soldiers from both sides of the conflict. He read aloud from letters written by men who had fought there, sharing their hopes, fears, and final goodbyes to loved ones. The aliens listened intently, their expressions growing more somber with each word. Joran stopped at a monument dedicated to a regiment of young soldiers. "They were so young," he said quietly. "Why would anyone send children to fight?" "There wasn't always a choice," Alex replied. "Many joined because they believed in a cause or wanted to protect their families. Others didn't have a way out." Vesa looked around at the vast fields, imagining the chaos and noise that once filled them. "How could anyone survive this?" she asked. "It must have been terrifying." "It was," Alex admitted. "But even in the middle of all that fear, some found strength they didn't know they had. Soldiers helped each other, shared food when supplies ran low, and kept going even when hope felt lost." Cale wandered toward a hill where a decisive moment of the battle had unfolded. He stood silently, staring down at the field below. "This land has seen so much death," he murmured. "Yet now it's peaceful. How does that happen?" "Time heals wounds," Alex said. "People learn to forgive, to rebuild." After the war ended, towns came together to honor those who died, not just from one side, but from both. That's why places like this exist, to remind us of what we lost and what we gained. Later, the group visited a small museum nearby, where artifacts from the battle were displayed. Lyra paused in front of a tattered uniform stained with dirt and blood. "Someone wore this," she said softly. "They carried it through all that suffering." "Yes," Alex replied. "And every stain, every tear, tells part of their story." By the end of the day, the aliens felt deeply moved by what they had seen and heard. Vesa turned to Alex, her voice trembling slightly. "I think I understand now. Your history isn't just about wars. It's about remembering the people who lived through them. Their struggles, their courage, it shapes who you are today." Alex smiled faintly. "Exactly. We carry the past with us, not to dwell on it, but to learn from it." As they prepared to leave, Cale glanced back at the battlefield one last time. For the first time, Earth's combat history didn't seem distant or confusing. It felt real, raw, and profoundly human. The aliens realized that behind every battle was a story of loss and resilience, of lives changed forever. And though they still had much to discover, they knew this visit would stay with them for the rest of their journey, and perhaps beyond. Back in the classroom, Alex decided to focus on a different side of Earth's history, how humanity rebuilt and recovered after wars. He wanted the alien students to see that while conflict caused immense pain, it also taught people the value of peace and cooperation. As the group settled into their seats, Alex began by showing images of cities rising from ruins, families reuniting, and nations working together to heal. "War leaves scars," Alex said, "but it also shows us what we stand to lose. After every conflict, humans have tried to rebuild, not just buildings, but trust, hope, and unity." Cale leaned forward, his dark eyes curious. "How do you start over after so much destruction?" "It's not easy," Alex admitted, "but people find ways." For example, after World War II ended, many countries were left in ruins. To help them recover, the United States created something called the Marshall Plan. It provided food, money, and materials to rebuild homes, schools, and factories. Lyra tilted her head. "So one nation helped its former enemies. Why would they do that?" "Because they understood that peace is better for everyone," Alex replied. Helping others heal meant fewer chances of future wars. It was an investment in a safer world. Joran crossed his arms, thinking deeply. That's surprising. On Zorath, we avoid conflict entirely, but maybe we also avoid learning how to fix things when they break. Alex nodded. Maybe. Humanity has learned that suffering can lead to growth, if we let it. After disasters, people often come together in ways they never expected. To illustrate his point, Alex shared stories of modern recovery efforts. He showed pictures of volunteers clearing rubble after earthquakes, doctors treating survivors of famines, and communities planting trees to restore damaged land. One story stood out: a small town hit by a hurricane where neighbors worked side by side to repair each other's homes. Vesa smiled faintly. They didn't wait for someone else to solve their problems. They did it themselves. That's right, Alex said. Even in hard times, people find strength in helping one another. That sense of community keeps them going. As the lesson continued, Alex highlighted global efforts to prevent future conflicts. He talked about organizations like the United Nations, which brought countries together to discuss issues peacefully. He also mentioned treaties designed to limit weapons and protect human rights. Kale looked thoughtful. You're saying that war, even though it's terrible, can teach you to value peace more? Yes, Alex replied. Sometimes, it takes losing everything to realize what truly matters. Humanity has made mistakes, but we've also grown wiser because of them. By the end of the session, the aliens felt a new respect for Earth's resilience. Lyra turned to Alex, her voice filled with admiration. Your species is stronger than I thought. You don't just survive. You adapt, you rebuild, you hope. Alex chuckled softly. We try our best, but we're still learning. Every generation faces new challenges, and we keep striving to do better. Vesa glanced at her classmates, her expression thoughtful. Maybe there's something we can learn from this too. Back home, we pride ourselves on avoiding conflict, but maybe we could also prepare for healing, if it ever comes to that. Joran nodded slowly. I agree. Seeing how humans face struggles gives me ideas about how we might handle our own problems differently. As they packed up to leave, Kale paused near the door. He looked back at Alex, his voice steady but sincere. Thank you for showing us this side of your history. It's not just about battles or weapons. It's about finding light in the darkness. That's something we'll remember. Alex smiled warmly. I'm glad you see it that way. Maybe someday you'll share what you've learned with your own world. The aliens walked away quietly, their minds buzzing with thoughts about humanity's ability to endure and grow. Though their time on Earth was nearing its end, they knew these lessons would stay with them forever, and perhaps inspire change far beyond this planet. On the final day of their visit, the alien students gathered with Alex and a small group of human representatives for a farewell ceremony. The event was held outdoors under a clear blue sky, with colorful flags fluttering gently in the breeze. Kale and his classmates stood together, their tall forms contrasting sharply with the humans around them. Despite their differences, there was a sense of warmth and connection in the air. Alex stepped forward to speak first. We're grateful for the time we spent together, he said, smiling at the aliens. You came here seeking knowledge, and I hope you leave with a deeper understanding of Earth and its people. Kale nodded, then turned to address the group. His voice carried a tone of quiet respect as he began to speak. When we arrived, we thought we would learn about your history, your wars, your struggles, your victories, and we did. But what surprised us most was learning about your resilience, your compassion, and your hope. He paused, glancing at his classmates before continuing. Your history is not perfect. You have made mistakes, faced hardships, and endured great pain. Yet through it all, you have found ways to rebuild, to forgive, and to grow. That is something we admire deeply. Lyra added her thoughts, her soft voice carrying emotion. We saw how ordinary people became heroes, not because they were born special, but because they chose to act with courage and kindness. Those stories will stay with us forever. Joran spoke next, his words measured and thoughtful. Back on Zorath, we avoid conflict entirely. We thought that made us advanced. But now we see that avoiding challenges might also mean missing opportunities to grow stronger. Perhaps there is value in facing difficulties and finding strength on the other side. Vesa smiled faintly, her gaze sweeping over the humans in the crowd. You showed us that even in the darkest times, light can emerge. Whether it's through acts of bravery, efforts to rebuild, or simply choosing peace over anger, you remind us of the power of hope. As Cal concluded the speech, his expression grew serious but hopeful. Earth has taught us lessons we will carry back to Zorath. Lessons about endurance, unity, and the importance of remembering the past, not to dwell on it, but to build a better future. Thank you for sharing your world with us. The humans clapped warmly, moved by the sincerity of the aliens' words. Alex stepped forward again, shaking hands or offering gestures of goodwill with each of the students. You've given us much to think about too, he said. Maybe one day we'll visit Zorath and learn from you as well. With the ceremony complete, the aliens prepared to leave. They walked slowly toward their spaceship, turning occasionally to wave at the humans watching them go. As the ship's engines hummed to life, Kale glanced out the window one last time, taking in the sight of Earth's green fields, sprawling cities, and endless skies. Inside the ship, Lyra leaned back in her seat, her mind replaying everything they had experienced. Do you think we'll ever be like them? She asked softly. In some ways, maybe, Kel replied. But we don't need to copy them. We just need to take what we've learned and use it to make our own world better. Joran nodded. They showed us that imperfection isn't weakness. It's part of being alive. And that's something worth embracing. As the spaceship ascended into the atmosphere, Alex watched it disappear into the clouds. He felt a mix of pride and gratitude. Though the aliens had come seeking knowledge, they had left having gained a deeper appreciation for humanity's complexity, and perhaps a spark of inspiration to share with their own kind. In that moment, Alex realized something important. Teaching others about Earth's combat history wasn't just about explaining battles and sacrifices. It was about showing the aliens, and reminding himself, that even in the face of darkness, humanity's capacity for hope and growth could shine brightly, reaching far beyond the stars.